Exodus chapter 3, verse 11 onwards. But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt?" And he said, "Assuredly, I will be with you, and this shall be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain." Then Moses said to God, "Behold, I am going to the sons of Israel, and I will say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you.' Now they may say to me, 'What is his name?' What shall I say to them?" And God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "This is what you shall say to the sons of Israel. I am has sent me to you." God furthermore said to Moses, "This is what you shall say to the sons of Israel. The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is the name for all generations to use to call upon me. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, 'The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has appeared to me, saying, I am indeed concerned about you and what has been done to you in Egypt.'" Chapter 4, verse 1. Then Moses said, "What if they will not believe me or listen to what I say? For they may say, 'The Lord has not appeared to you.'" Verse 10. Then Moses said to the Lord, "Please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither recently nor in time past, nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." But the Lord said to him, "Who has made the human mouth? Or who makes anyone unable to speak or deaf, or able to see or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now then, go, and I myself will be with you with your mouth, and instruct you in what you ought to say." But he said, "Please, Lord, send the message by whomever you will." Then the anger of the Lord burned against Moses, and he said, "Is there not your brother Aaron the Levite? I know that he speaks fluently, and moreover, behold, he is coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be overjoyed. So you ought to speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I myself will be with your mouth and his mouth. And I will instruct you in what you ought to do. He shall speak for you to the people, and he will be as a mouth for you, and you will be as God to him. And you shall take in your hands the staff with which you shall perform the signs." After God's revelation of himself as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and after revealing his plan for his people, God told Moses what he wanted him to do in his grand plan. However, Moses comes up with some questions and concerns. We see God answering his concerns. The first concern that he's saying is, "I am insignificant." He says, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt?" 40 years back, he fled from Egypt when Pharaoh tried to kill him for his offense against an Egyptian in defense of a Hebrew slave. He was a murderer, a wanted man in Egypt. Neither would the Israelites accept him. One of them had already said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us?" When Moses tried to get him to make peace with his own Hebrew neighbor during his quarrel with each other. So here, Moses is looking at his own credentials, his own track record, or his own abilities, for any sign that he will be able to fulfill God's plans concerning him. God brings him back to the fundamentals. The issue is not who Moses is, but whose he is. God has sent him, and it is God who will be with him. Moses' authority is based upon his divine call and the divine presence with him as he goes. God says, "Assuredly, I will be with you." The Lord said to Paul, "My grace is sufficient for you." Jesus said, "Lo, I am with you till the end of the world." When we realize that God is with us, we can say along with Paul, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Faith is seeing God as the mover in his almighty power rather than myself with all my weaknesses. The second concern that Moses is saying is that he says, "I'm ignorant. I don't know how to present this God who appeared to me, to my people. I don't know his name." God answers with his name, "I am that I am," which demonstrates that he is the eternally present, personal, unique God. No one else can take this name, Yahweh. In a way, this name is like a blank check. God said, "This is the name for all generations to use to call upon me." The prophets and people of God used this name to mark their recognition and faith that God was their sufficiency when they went through different needs. You see the examples. Jehovah Nissi, the Lord my banner. We read that in Exodus chapter 17, verse 15. Jehovah Rah, the Lord is my shepherd, from that famous Psalm 23, verse 1. Jehovah Rapha, the Lord that heals, in Exodus 15, verse 26. Jehovah Shammah, the Lord is there in Ezekiel chapter 48, verse 35. Jehovah Sidkenu, the Lord our righteousness, the prophet Jeremiah in chapter 33, verse 16. Jehovah Mekodishkem, the Lord who sanctifies you. Same book, Exodus 31, verse 13. Jehovah Jireh, the famous words of Abraham in Genesis chapter 22, verse 14, which says, "The Lord will provide." Jehovah Shalom, the Lord is peace, in Judges chapter 6, verse 24. And Jehovah Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, Isaiah proclaims that in chapter 1, verse 24. The people of God filled in the blank when they saw their own insufficiency, and then they saw the sufficiency in God and in God alone. And the third concern that he brought up was, they won't believe me. God had already told him in Exodus chapter 3, verse 18, then they will pay attention to what you say. Again, to doubt his words is stark unbelief. But God is patient with him and gave him 3 powerful signs to convince the Israelites. All the signs signify God's power to create, destroy, inflict a deadly disease, and heal at his will. God is not only the creator, but also the judge and destroyer of those who oppose him. Pharaoh had tried in vain to destroy Israel. But here, Moses could easily destroy Egypt with the power of the Almighty. In the same way, the Lord worked with his disciples as they scattered everywhere, preaching the word so that their testimony would be credible. The fourth excuse that he brought up was, "I am slow of speech." When God calls us, or the physical or mental or any other weaknesses of ours is not an impediment to God to fulfill his plan. He says, "I myself will be with your mouth and instruct you in what you ought to say." He gives the ability to those whom he calls after they respond. He made David a skilled architect, Noah a skillful woodworker and shipbuilder, and Peter a strong preacher of the faith. And the fifth excuse is, "I sent someone else." Moses does not want to go. He could not trust God to do his will through him despite his weaknesses. Far from being the young warrior and nobleman who lashed out in a spirit of justice, he was now anxious for only one thing, that he not be chosen or sent. It looks humble of him, but this kind of humility is the kind that the Lord is not pleased with. In fact, the Lord's anger kindled against him, but God was pitiful towards his servant and sent Aaron to assist him. My friends, when God calls us for a mission, it is good not to trust in our own abilities or powers. It is good to see yourself as insignificant. We see examples of this in Gideon, Jeremiah, Amos, etc. But failing to see the sufficiency of the one who called us is unbelief. We need to trust in God's ability to fulfill the task that he has entrusted us. We also need to submit to the authority of God in humble obedience to his command. It is his right to choose anybody whom he wants, and our privilege and duty to obey. Whatever we think about our fitness for the task, we may be weak and insignificant in our eyes. In the past, we might have terribly failed. Yet, when God calls us, we need to respond in faith joyfully. Like Isaiah, we can also say, "Here am I, send me." God bless.